Jerusalem is one of the world's most important cities. It is the capital of Israel, and it has been the center of three major religions for thousands of years: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Even today, people from all over the world come to visit the city. In 2019, around 3.6 million people visited Jerusalem. This number might seem low until you remember that this is a city with a population of around 900,000 people, so it gets around 4 visitors for every resident. That is pretty impressive, but how did Jerusalem get so important? Well, let's go back in time and see how the city went from a small Canaanite village to the modern metropolis it is today. Our story begins around 4,000 years ago, when humans began to settle in the area. The first civilization in Jerusalem were the Canaanites, who established a small village here around 3000 BC. However, the Canaanites were a peaceful people, and their village was constantly being raided by the neighboring nations. So, after around 300 years, they abandoned their city and moved away. Around 2000 BC, a group of nomads called the Jebusites moved into the city. They were a tough people who quickly made Jerusalem into a fortified city. For the next few hundred years, the city would change hands many times, being conquered by the Egyptians, the Hyksos, and the Philistines. But the Jebusites were able to hold on to their city until around 1000 BC, when the Israelites conquered Jerusalem and made it their capital. For the Jews, Jerusalem became the holiest city in the world. Their main temple, the first temple, was located here. This was where God told King Solomon to build his palace and where he would rule over his empire. Unfortunately, the first temple would be destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, but the Jews were allowed to return to Jerusalem and rebuild both their city and their temple. This would become known as the Second Temple. It stood for another 600 years until it too was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. The destruction of the Second Temple marked the end of Jewish sovereignty over Jerusalem. Over the next 2,000 years, the city would be ruled by the Romans, the Byzantines, the Arabs, the Persians, the Ottomans, and finally the British. During this time, the city's name would also change several times. The Greeks would rename it Aelia Capitolina. The Muslims would call it Al-Quds or Al-Quds, and the Crusaders would refer to it as Jerusalem. Finally, in 1948, the State of Israel was established and Jerusalem became its capital. Since then, the city has grown to become one of the most important cities in the world. But Jerusalem isn't only important for the Jews. Around 2,000 years ago, Jesus came to the city and began preaching about the kingdom of God. Many of Jesus' miracles took place here, and it was also where he was crucified. For Christians, Jerusalem is the second holiest city in the world after Rome. When Muhammad founded Islam in the 7th century, he said that Jerusalem was the third holiest city in Islam after Mecca and Medina. To this day, Muslims travel to Jerusalem to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. As you can see, Jerusalem has been very important for all three religions for thousands of years. But the question is why? Why is Jerusalem so special? Well, there are many possible answers. The first one is because it is a beautiful city. Jerusalem is situated on top of a mountain ridge and it has been surrounded by mountains for thousands of years. Even today, the city is surrounded by a wall, and the mountains protect it from invaders coming from the north, east, and south. If you look at any map of Jerusalem, you will see that the city is blessed with natural beauty all around it. On the east side, you have the Mount of Olives. On the west side, you have the Judean desert. And if you fly over the city, you will see that it is literally in the middle of a forest. Of course, these forests are not like the Amazon rainforest. This is the Judean desert after all. But it is still nice to have some trees around your city. This natural beauty makes Jerusalem a very attractive place to live. And throughout history, many powerful leaders have tried to conquer the city and make it their capital. Another reason is because Jerusalem is in the middle of the Levant region. The Levant is a very strategic location. It is between Africa, Asia, and Europe, and throughout history, it has been the center of many trade routes, so controlling Jerusalem gave you control over the entire region. and this is why so many empires have fought over the city. A third reason is because of the water. Water is essential for any civilization, and Jerusalem is lucky because it is in the middle of a region with lots of water. The city is close to the Dead Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the River Jordan. All of these sources of water have helped to sustain life in Jerusalem for thousands of years. And finally, the fourth reason is because of the soil. The soil around Jerusalem is very fertile. You can grow lots of fruits, vegetables, and grains here. So when the Israelites settled in Jerusalem, they knew they had found a good place to live. So these are some of the reasons why Jerusalem became such an important city. But what about today? Why is it still so important? Well, today, Jerusalem is important for two main reasons. The first one is because it is the capital of Israel. Most of Israel's government buildings are here, and this is where Israel's president lives. Even though Tel Aviv is Israel's largest city, Jerusalem is its capital. The second reason is because it is still a holy city for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Every year, people from all over the world come to Jerusalem to visit the holy sites. For the Jews, they come to visit the Western Wall and the Temple Mount. For the Christians, they come to visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And for the Muslims, they come to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. These two reasons sometimes cause problems, though. When Israel occupied the West Bank in 1967, they also occupied East Jerusalem. At the time, East Jerusalem was full of Arabs, but after the occupation, more and more Jews began to move into the city. Today, around 80% of the people living in Jerusalem are Jewish, and around 15% are Arab. There is also a small number of Christians, but they make up less than 1% of the population. The problem is that most of the Arabs want independence from Israel, and many of the Jews want to keep Jerusalem under Israeli control forever. This means that there is often tension between the Arabs and the Jews. Sometimes this tension leads to violence, which makes living in Jerusalem a dangerous job. Despite all of these problems, Jerusalem is still one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Its ancient walls and holy sites make it a very special place. If you ever get the chance to visit, you should definitely go. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.